Well, good evening, everybody. Welcome to Todd Clint's SharePoint Netcast number 144. Tonight's Netcast was recorded live Monday, February 4th, 2013. And as always, the folks at Rackspace provide the bandwidth, and they don't fire me every week, so I kind of get the material from them. So we got all that going for us. But this week, Rackspace has also provided not one, but two guests tonight. So Rackspace is providing the download space, the paychecks, your face, his face. So it's a pretty good show tonight.
Mike's a very exciting addition. I mean, one of Rackspace's newest frackers, they lent him to us. Yes. He must be a big deal.
Well, clearly. That's what my mom keeps telling me. Hi, Mom. So this is kind of a fun one. Shane and I are down in San Antonio teaching a SharePoint 2013 admin class. And so we're doing the thing on the road. This is one of the things we get to do. Mike has not made better plans for tonight, so he got sucked into this. I think Shane told him there's going to be candy in here.
It's a free snacks, yeah.
We got candy in the back there, and that's why Mike's here. In the chat room, Doug is asking if Mike's ridden the slide. Mike, have you done the slide yet?
Absolutely. 2 times.
Twice, yeah.
Twice.
And we took our class.
Yes.
We took a class field trip to the slide and made everybody go down the slide. So it's you got to do it.
Yeah, they got a malady. They're like, we're not going to do it. Like, nope.
You are not too cool to go down the slide. Go down the slide. Yep, Tom was in the class. He saw it too.
I have a picture of Tom. I should post that.
You should. We could have put it up here. I can put pictures live now while we're.
See, I'm not smart enough for all this technology stuff.
Yeah. So I'm going to move my windows around here. Since I'm doing this on the road, I don't have my regular recording rig, so I want to make sure that I can see everything. There's that one's still going.
Oh, your bunny ears are too high, Mike. You gotta get real tight.
Yeah, this is a webcam. This isn't. All right. So where'd my notes go? There they are. Okay. So as always, we'll start off with the production notes. For those of you, we got a bunch in the chat room that have been around for the last month or so. We moved everything off of Ustream or off of Stickcam to Ustream, and then turns out last week Stickcam went away. Shut down. Friday was Stickcam's last day.
That's fair sad.
The site's going to be up for another month or so. If your Stickcam channel had recordings, you can download them. But I think the lesson to take away from this is I was on Stickcam for like 3.5 years and it was doing fine. I leave Stickcam for Ustream within a month. They're done.
So your mom stopped funding them as soon as you left?
I killed them dead. So I apologize to all the people who are on Stickcam and relied on it, that I killed their entertainment. But that's for the last month or so, I've been kind of telling folks I wasn't sure if I was going to move off of Stickcam. I think I've decided.
Yeah, that worked out.
I think I sat down, looked at all the evidence, and I think I'm going to stick with Ustream.
And according to SharePoint Jack, if they fire you, or Rackspace fires you, they're going to have the same problem.
Well, that's I didn't want to come out and say it. But we've talked a little bit about what's made Ustream better over Stickcam. The ads on Ustream irritate a lot of people, and Jack's going to be a good guy and kick out a link for me. But until we get it figured out on the Rackspace side, what we're going to do about the ads, as the viewers, you can kick out $4 a month at that link, ustream.com/premium-membership. And for $4 a month, you can buy out all the ads on all the Ustream stuff that you watch. So until we figure out what Rackspace is going to do, I think that's a pretty good option. $4 a month, that's like $1 per netcast. So that's cheap at twice the price. Well, really $4 is about the edge of it. And in the chat room, we've seen a little bit about this. Now that I'm on Ustream, there's a lot of other ways to consume this. So people have Roku boxes that are hooked up to their TV. They can watch it that way. There's clients for Android. We're watching that up there. Apple, all that. So it's been a pretty good transition.
What about my Windows Phone?
Nothing works on your Windows Phone. That's actually Lori Gowan. She's got an RT device, a Surface RT, and a Windows Phone. I don't think it works on any of that, or I think she's just using the web page.
That's really sad.
Lori, after you get caught up from the lag, tell Shane how you're watching this. And Mike's in the back there. He's on Shane's laptop, chatting in the chat room, and he's doing the side-by-side view. So it's all pretty good. All the feedback I've gotten for the last month or so has been that the Ustream thing's worked out pretty well, better than Stickcam.
Chad Ochocinco used to use Ustream, so I mean it's got to be a good platform.
Yes, well, that's not a ringing endorsement. So Lori's saying that the Windows Phone does not work, but the Surface does work. And that's the Surface RT, not the Surface Pro. We should actually talk about that later on. It has nothing to do with SharePoint, but we'll talk about the Surface thing, because there's some confusion about that. So that's one of the changes, the switch to Ustream, but I guess it's official now. I guess since I can't go back to Stickcam, I think we're going to stick with Ustream for a while. Those of you in the chat room and some folks that get the downloads have left comments on the blog and have emailed me. Everything's been pretty positive, so I think we'll stick with it. The other thing I wanted to talk about from a production standpoint is I'm kind of playing with different cameras and different recording software and all that. For those of you that are downloading the video version, the files have gotten larger, the resolution's gotten better, the file sizes have gotten bigger. Has that been a problem for anybody? If so, let me know. I try to keep everything the native resolution, and I don't downsample. But if the files are getting too large, 500-600 meg, whatever, give me a shout, and we'll kind of talk through that. I don't know how big of a deal that is to people, but I want to.
How big were they before?
Well, as the years have gone by, they've slowly gotten larger and larger. As I've replaced cameras and the default resolution of the camera has gotten bigger, the files have gotten bigger. But I think the Windows file. Well, and the other thing is I changed to Camtasia 8,
okay,
which in most every way seems to be inferior to Camtasia 7. But when I render them out, they seem to just take more space. Like the last one, the Windows file was 450 meg, something like that. Now it was 45 minutes. It was getting up there. But that's one of the things, if it's a problem for those guys. Not a problem for me because Rackspace hosts my files. So I got that cloud storage, and I got the fast bandwidth because Rackspace is hooked up. The internet pretty much intersects right underneath San Antonio.
It does.
And they're just tapped right in, and you can't saturate their pipes. Yeah. It's
I actually had to sit around like Castle and just download stuff just to watch this feed.
Just to download it and delete it. And it is so fast. It's crazy fast.
It's true.
And Susan in the chat room, who wouldn't want the highest resolution of me? Like, clearly. I mean, right? You wouldn't want to miss any of this. This is good stuff here.
Why do you people do this?
When this guy's here, we kind of want to do the soft lens thing, put the Vaseline on the lens.
Can I do this kind of this way?
I wish you would, actually. I didn't want to say anything.
But just my green shoulder. They know I'm here, but...
So that's one of the things. But if you are downloading these files, and I've kind of jimmied with the audio file a little lately too, so just kind of let me know what your feedback is on that. I'm trying to be a good. So Jack's asking, is there a codec that can encode each half of the screen at a different resolution? That's a brilliant idea, Jack. I like that. I could also just put my finger over that half. Thing. So but again, a lot of transitions here, and now that we've kind of got the Ustream stuff figured out, now the tool, and I was kind of showing Shane the tool before I broadcasted live, how I can mix different cameras in, things like that. So I think we've got some good options.
Yeah, setup's gotten a lot better since the first time I did one of these.
Yeah, Shane could be pixelated like the police TV show. That'd be awesome.
I hate you all.
8-bit graphics on that side, and I think that's not a bad idea. When we start bringing him in with Skype, I'll have to do something like that. He's writing notes now about. So that's all good. So again, the production stuff, we've had a lot of changes in the last month or so. But let me know what your feedback is. Comments. You can hit me up on Twitter @Todd Clint. You can email me todd.clint@rackspace.com. Any of these ways to get feedback. All right, so on to some topics. Let's talk about some stuff. Let's kind of see where we're at there. Just so you know, Shane, that's kind of my running count on how long the thing's going.
Gotcha.
I always go over. I completely ignore that, but that's the thing that I ignore. So talk about some SharePoint topics. One of the things that came up, and this is something that Shane and I have been talking about because of some Rackspace stuff that we're doing, super secret squirrel stuff, but we'll have some news hopefully in a few months about it. But this idea that in SharePoint 2013, you've got the SharePoint 2010 workflows are built in.
Yep.
When you take a SharePoint 2010 content database, bolt it into SharePoint 2013, the workflows just work. But there's this new capability now with SharePoint 2013 workflows, but that requires the workflow manager. Another process on another box. And so the thing that Shane and I were discussing a couple weeks ago was whether one workflow manager server or farm of servers could handle multiple SharePoint farms. Turns out the answer is yes.
Yep.
So a friend of mine and a SharePoint MCM, Victor Weiland out of Sweden, has a blog post on that, and he talks about exactly how to do that. And he talks about if you try to do it without doing some fiddling, it's not going to work. because of how SharePoint exposes itself to the workflow manager. There's a scope setting built in, and the scope is just SharePoint. So you attach the first one, the scope is SharePoint, everything's fine. You attach the second one, its scope is also SharePoint. Workflow manager kicks out the first one. So there's some things you have to do to change that scope value, and then you can have multiple farms. So that's kind of an interesting thing for us as hosters. That's something that we think about a lot. So. But for internal folks, if they want to have multiple farms, IT manages all that kind of stuff, that's a good thing. And we've also talked about the same thing with Office Web Apps. We should be able to do that with Office Web Apps also. Stand up your Office Web App farm, hook in multiple SharePoint farms. So Mark's saying kind of a central services thing, yeah? I mean, it's kind of...
Yeah, well, if you think about it, right, with Workflow Manager, because Workflow Manager, unlike Office Web Apps, can run in the same farm as SharePoint, right? So SharePoint and Workflow Manager can be on the same physical box. So you could almost think about maybe we have the one primary farm. You stood up your collaboration farm or something like that. It's got all that services running. You're like, hey, it's time to bolt in a second farm, or set up a second farm to do my sites or something, or dev or test, right? You could leverage, maybe not dev and test. You probably wouldn't want to hit that production instance of Workflow Manager. Yeah. But there's some. I guess the thing to take away from this is the workflow stuff doesn't have to be on a dedicated piece of hardware in order to do these scenarios.
Yeah. But that was just kind of something I wanted to bring up because this is all new with SharePoint 2013. There's a lot of questions. And the thing that it's another download and another install is kind of slows some people down.
Yeah.
But that was good for Victor to have figured that out for us. A related thing is, and this I think Dan Usher maybe posted this in Twitter Friday night, but there's a download link now on the Microsoft Technical Library that is all of the SharePoint 2013 technical articles. So it's just a compiled help file of all the stuff. So it's nice. A bunch of it's still from July, so a bunch of it's built on the preview bits. But it's nice to have it all in one spot because it's easy to search and all that. Hopefully, as they update those articles, they'll recompile that periodically and download that.
Well, that's a good point with the help. Anytime I'm reading TechNet these days, I always check the date at the bottom, right? Because if it's got that June date on it, you take it with a grain of salt. Yep. If it's been updated a week ago, you're like, all right, this is probably more in line with what I want. So.
Yeah, and remember your timeline. The preview came out July 16th, and the RTM came out October 23rd or whatever it was. So if the article was written between July and October, probably based on the preview bits. If it's after October, probably on the RTM bits.
And the same thing to think about, like there was a big drop in July, and there was a big drop in October. So anytime there's a big drop, right, anytime you got to turn in a whole bunch of stuff at once, like a book chapter, for example, you might rush a little, whereas those articles that kind of been put out at odd dates, those are always the best ones I find, because someone took some care around those. They weren't just trying to meet a quota to get a bunch of documents out.
Yeah. So, and there's also some ways, and I haven't done it in a while, but there's also a way that you can save TechNet articles into like a folio and then save that out as a PDF. So you could also do the same thing. You compile this all together yourself. Mm-hmm. That would be a lot more work. But that was a good thing for those that are trying to get up to speed on 2013. Maybe they're trying to get up to speed on 2013 because they want to take some exams. Oh. Maybe a good segue there. You see how I did that?
You're fancy.
So back in November, I think it was October, November, to I think everybody, I don't know, Microsoft sent out a thing that you could take the SharePoint 2013 admin exam betas. And so for those of you that haven't done that before, the writing the exam process at Microsoft's a long, painful process. There's a group that gets together that writes kind of the outline. They call it the objective domain. Here's the areas that we want to hit. Here's how hard we want to hit it. Search should have 10 questions. Resource management should have 2 questions, that kind of stuff. And then another group goes and writes the questions for that, and the answers, hopefully. And you all sit in a room and fight about what questions are good and all that. They put the exam together, some actual exam folks, sanitize it, fix everything. And then they have the beta, which is what happened in October, November. A bunch of people take the beta. They look at the beta results and they say, okay, everybody missed question 12, probably a bad question. Everybody got question 63 right, and kind of figure that out. And then that's how they decide for later tests who passes and who fails, by looking at that. So the bad news about that is you get the beta exam, and I took them on November 6th and November 7th. You don't find out until the exam goes live whether you passed or not, because they haven't decided what questions they're going to keep or not. So I took the exams on November 6th and November 7th, the week before the SharePoint conference, and last week the results showed up on the MCP site. So if you go to mcp.microsoft.com and log in, and look at your transcript, or on the right-hand side, they've got a thing that says the most recent tests that you passed. So if you took the SharePoint 2013 beta exams, rush right out right now to mcp.microsoft.com, sign out of live, then sign back into live, and look at your transcript, or on the right-hand side, there'll be a list that says what the most recent tests you passed are. So since that's out there, I'm assuming those exams are going to be live if they're not already. So downloading that MCP or that TechNet thing would be kind of a good way to study for that. Yeah. Did you take the exams?
I did.
Did you check today if you passed?
I checked last week.
And what's the word?
I was a 50-50.
You got one, and so I checked, and I passed them both. So I was
smarter than me.
This is true.
And finally have proof.
And a touch better looking too. And that's not just my mom. Mike said it too earlier tonight. When I was feeding him chocolate, though, well,
that's why I got him over here. I was going to start.
And it wasn't creepy at all. It was very tasteful. So Joanne's asking in the chat room, both dev and admin. Only admin. They have, as with, since SharePoint 2007, they've got kind of a beginning admin exam and an advanced. It's like core solutions and advanced solutions or something like that. But only the admin exams are out now. The dev exams, I haven't heard hide nor hair of those. I haven't heard anything about those.
Yeah.
Haven't been beta, haven't been anything. So nothing up for that.
Yeah, so ironically, right, I passed the advanced. And it's the simple stuff that I don't know how to do in SharePoint, apparently. That core technology I'm crap at. But, hard stuff, I'm your man. Yeah,
and with that one, those beta exams are tough because they've got every single question that anybody ever suggested. It took a long time, and then you don't find out what's going on. But I think the beta exams, at least the link that I got, was free. So, all it cost me was my time and a little bit of nervous energy. So if you ever see that, take the beta exams, go about that.
Yeah, and it's interesting with those, especially because, like Todd referred to earlier, there's questions that everyone misses. There are some really bad questions in those tests. And so part of it, you kind of, when you sign up for it, you're agreeing that you're going to provide feedback.
Yep.
Maybe that might have been why I failed the one. I might have used some of that inappropriate language in my feedback. The beta for the 2010, I'm not supposed to talk about this, am I? Never mind.
Well, you can speak hypothetically.
Oh, so hypothetically in the 2010 beta exam, I had been teaching 2010 upgrade stuff for 5 months at that point to over 1,000 people at that point. I knew upgrade pretty okay at that point. There was an upgrade question I didn't understand on the 2010 exam. I don't know what to say.
The words in that order just didn't...
It just wasn't a real question. So it happens.
Yeah, and the beta exam, so I can tell you, and I don't think this is NDA, I was on the team that wrote the 2007 admin exams. And up till that point, I think by the time I had helped author the 2007 exams, I had taken and passed 10 or 12 Microsoft exams by that time, and everybody complains about exams, the Microsoft exams especially. Having been on the other side of that, I understand a little bit how that happens.
Yeah.
And I don't know if this is the same. I helped write those SharePoint 2007 exams 6 years ago. It was quite a while ago. But one of the things was when you wrote a question, there had to be exactly one answer, and it had to be correct for any situation anybody could think of. There couldn't be, a person taking the exam couldn't come up with a situation where that answer wasn't correct. And then the wrong answers, what they called distractors, had to be incorrect 100% of the time. There could be no way that anybody could construe anything that would make them correct. And at the time that I wrote that exam, and again, I don't know if this is the same, but we couldn't make anything up.
Right.
So if the question was, what is the command that upgrades content databases? We couldn't make up a command that's upgrade your content databases.exe. We could use an existing command that was something else and repurpose it, but we had to use real tools, real links, and all that kind of stuff. And it was incredibly difficult because we would come up with what we thought were great questions, and then the way that we did that one is we had 2 rooms writing exam questions, and then the last day we all got together and critiqued each other's questions. And somebody from the other room would invariably say, well, if you do this thing with this thing and DNS does this thing, that's not correct, and you got to throw it out, or you got to rewrite the correct answer. So that was very difficult. I feel some sympathy, some empathy for those folks when I read those horrible exam questions, because I know what they sat through.
Or if I recall, someone in your group almost killed someone else in your group. No names here, but
there were mutterings of physical violence. Yeah.
That's how stressful that whole process was.
Yeah, I mean, we're just locked in a room for 40 hours, just hammering it. And at that point, it was a beta product. We didn't.
Yeah.
It was pretty tough. So some good questions in the chat room. I didn't want to overlook them. Doug was asking, why you should take exams. What's the value? He can't figure out why you should do it.
That's a valid question.
It is, and I will go on record. This is being recorded as saying that not everybody should, not everybody has to. But I will tell you that with every exam that I've ever studied for, admin, developer, whatever, I've learned something every time. Every single time in studying for an exam, I picked up things that I should have already known, but I didn't.
Right.
So there's that value there. And Doug's an internal guy. I know Doug personally, so I kind of know what his job situation is. For us, it's kind of important because we do consulting, so it's a thing, and our company's a Microsoft partner, so they need so many to do all that kind of stuff. So it's more important for us probably, but I don't know. It's a learning experience. It's good. So, and I will throw it back. So, Doug, I can't remember if you've been to any of the things, but I know like at the SharePoint conference last year, they were letting people take them for free.
Yeah.
Didn't cost you anything. You just took your time. So I don't know why you wouldn't take them at that point.
Free ones are definitely.
And that comes out a lot. And I think right now you get free retakes, or you get one free retake. So if you fail. So Lori in the chat room has a pod show where she talks about certification, so I'll put that in the show notes for folks that are listening too. But other than the time and the money, and I can't remember what they cost now, $150, $200 to take the exam.
50 sounds about right, yeah.
But for us, Rackspace covers it, so it's not a big deal for us. But so yeah, and the exam thing, it's funny you hear people talk about how certifications are dumb, but that's usually people who don't have certifications that say that. It's all part of the puzzle. It's all part of the thing. You can't just look at somebody's resume and say, oh, he passed the exams. He must know his stuff. But you want to take that. You want to talk to him. It's all...
Well, we get the question a lot of times with our training class, right, is will our training class help them pass the exam? That's a very common question that comes up with potential students. The answer is always no, right? Because I would argue that the stuff you need to know to pass the exam and the stuff you need to know to be a good admin...
Not always the same.
There's not a lot of intersection there. So.
And I will say also, and again, this might be dated information, but Microsoft, there's the certification team that writes the exams and all that. There's the education team that writes the courseware, and absolutely the education team does not teach to the certification stuff. Right. That's very clear. So they don't want people learning to pass the exam. They want people to actually pass the exam because they know the stuff. So yeah, it's... Yeah, I mean, it doesn't hurt. Susan's talking about the street cred that she got when she passed the 2007 exams. I'm sure her friends kind of picked up on that.
Yeah. I mean, Susan's kind of gangster is really what I'm hearing.
She's from the Detroit area, so yeah, she probably... so, yeah.
What is that? That's 8-1...
I don't know.
I used to know the numbers.
Yeah, well, she's actually from Ann Arbor, but close enough. But I mean, it just doesn't hurt if they're free. Go out there, pass them. Again, you're going to learn some stuff. It's going to make you better at your job because you're going to... Because we all have parts of SharePoint that we do a lot, that we know really well, and there's always that stuff on the fringe that we just don't know. You got to study that stuff for the exam.
Well, this way, when you did the beta, or not the beta, when you did the dev exams a couple years back, I thought that was a great endeavor.
Not great enough to do it himself.
I will never do it myself, let's be clear.
It was great that I did it, but not...
Yeah. I mean, it forced you to learn some stuff that you don't know anything other than words now, but, at least you got something there.
Yeah. So it's not a bad thing. But go out there if you took those exams. Now, somebody in the chat room, I think Jack was saying that they didn't show up that he took the betas. Mine didn't show up that I took them. It only showed up that I passed them. So how did yours show up if you didn't pass them?
I didn't go to the MCP site. I went to Prometric.
Yeah, so that's another thing. If you took it through Prometric, go there. I didn't even think to go to Prometric site. So go to Prometric, see if it's in there. So, all right, I think we've hammered on that one. Yep. So the Surface, let's talk about this. This really has nothing at all to do with SharePoint.
Oh.
But, Shane and I, to differing degrees, kind of live the Microsoft lifestyle. And we all know that Windows 8 is out, Windows Phone 8 is out.
Yeah.
And then Microsoft is moving into the tablet thing, and they're kind of getting behind it. They're pushing hard. But I think it's confusing. I think the average person on the street doesn't know what the hell Microsoft's doing with tablets. They know that the tablet clicks, whatever the hell that means. If that's a good thing, makes a hell of a lot of noise. But so kind of the big news the last couple of weeks has been that the Surface Pro tablets are going to be coming out here pretty quick. And it's really confusing last week, especially because Microsoft was getting dinged that the 128 gig Surface Pro was only going to have 90 gig of usable space or something. But the problem becomes, and I blame Microsoft 100% for this. It's 100% on them. The Windows RT operating system.
Yes.
Which right now there is the Surface RT hardware device, which is this, which runs Windows RT, is analogous to a tablet. It's like an iPad. It's like an Android tablet.
Yep.
And that's what it does. Those are all devices in the same area. The Surface Pro that's coming out is running Windows 8, not Windows RT, Windows 8, and it's an OS. I mean, it's a desktop OS. So being frustrated that a Surface Pro device that has 128 gig only has 90 gig of free space is like getting frustrated that when you go to the store and buy a Dell that's got a terabyte drive, it only has 900 gig of space free. It's a desktop OS. But people are comparing Surface Pro devices with iPads and saying, well, my 64 gig iPad has 64 gig. What the hell?
Do they? Is that?
Yeah.
I've never touched it.
Well, they're close enough. It's not 30% or whatever.
Yeah. Okay.
And so and to make matters even more confusing, the Surface Pro devices look exactly like the Surface RT devices. They're a little thicker, but they look the same. They use the same accessories, so if you've got a Surface RT keyboard, you'll be able to hook it up to your Surface Pro device. But they're completely different things. It's crazy.
It is tough. Like you said, they've done a really poor job of marketing it, other than the fact that, we can do the... Oh, can I do... I'm not
oh, there we go, yeah.
So you've heard the click, and then there...
Oh, it stands up at exactly one angle. Exactly one angle.
There's no complaint about that. But it's tough, right? They don't really... There's a lot of really good things about it that they're missing the boat promoting.
Yeah, I agree. And I want to see Microsoft be successful.
Yeah.
I have a lot vested in that. My kids' educations, that kind of stuff. But so as you see people out there on Facebook and Twitter and all that complaining about Surface Pro, gently remind them that it's a desktop OS, so you should be comparing it to your HP or your Dell desktop boxes or laptops. It's... So Susan's asking what the Pro specs are. I don't remember any of the specifics on the Surface Pro.
It's got an i5. It's the full 10 or 19 whatever resolution.
1920 by 1080. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't remember. Battery life is less. It's got an Atom processor. Or no, not Atom, but the i5. The other thing to keep in mind is the Surface Pro is just the hardware component. There are other tablets running Windows 8, and there are other tablets running Windows RT. I think Asus has one, and so you don't have to get the Surface Pro and the Surface RT. Those are just Microsoft's hardware running that OS to further confuse things.
Well, one of the complaints that I think people are going to have about the Pro that they haven't had yet is it also doesn't include Office. So the RT
includes Office.
Includes Office, except for Outlook, which don't get me started on that one. But the Pro does not include Office, and I think when the world actually opens one up and realizes that, there'll be another wave of complaints. Why did I get Office for free?
Yeah, and I think, so one of the things that Microsoft has been pushing with Windows 8 and Windows Phone 8 and Windows RT is this idea that it's a unified interface, which is going to be even more confusing because now you're going to get a Windows RT device that isn't going to be able to run things that looks just like your Windows device that can run things, and vice versa. And the Windows Store is going to show different things, and it's...
Also, the store shows everything. When you go to install it, it's a little frustrating. So I've had the RT since it came out. I love my RT, but I will tell you that the mail client, which is probably one of the most productive things I do with it, is awful.
Awful. Nobody has been able to argue that.
But what's worse though is my Windows Phone. The mail client is outstanding,
which is an older version of Windows.
So why couldn't they do that? That's the one thing. In a lot of ways they've punished the early adopters, right? Me, the fanboy who has one of everything, that wants this concrete, everything is the same story. They punish me because it's like it almost is the same, but it's just enough different that I'm like, it doesn't click the button the way I want.
And frustrating things like on an RT device, print screen is one button combination, but on Windows Phone, print screen is a completely different combination. So I kind of bought into that whole it's going to be the same, except it turned out it's not the same.
Yeah. Maybe with 9.
8.5. But to kind of wrap it all together, SharePoint looks great on it.
Yeah.
Renders fine. But it's been frustrating. And as an Android guy, I'm happy with Android. I've been using Android for 3 years now. I really wanted the Windows RT stuff. When you got your RT tablet, I was all excited. I wanted to love it. I wanted it to knock my socks off. And it was okay, but it didn't, I don't know.
I think the Pro's the thing that's going to knock your socks off, but it's $1,000.
Yes.
And
that's another thing that's killing them is the $1,000 price tag.
Yeah, you put your socks back on for $1,000.
Yes, I'm going to need those back, yeah. But if you've got a Microsoft store nearby somewhere, I think they go on sale this week or next week. Or
the 9th.
Yeah, so in 5 days. So, but I would be curious. I know a lot of people in the chat room and a lot of people that download this have those kind of, they're Microsoft guys like us. So I'd be curious what people's feedback is.
Yeah. The RT mail client does handle meeting invites. It's never not. I don't know if.
Okay.
Just to answer one of the room questions.
Yeah, the chat room questions. So that's something that we'll be keeping an eye on. I'm trying to get Rackspace has got some RT tablets floating around. I've been trying to get my hands on one of those to just take it for a spin, but everybody keeps wanting to play with them. So they're the new thing. They're the new coolness. So
well, the kids supposedly are starting to flock to them. I don't know if you've read any of those articles that are talking about that the iPads are no longer hip, right? Because everyone has one,
and they don't click.
Yeah, so
kids love clicking.
The kids, some of the younger generations are moving to the Surface just because it's different.
Oh, jeez.
Which is weird.
Yeah, so. But that's all right. So we got a couple of minutes left. Shane, before the show, you and I talked a little bit about topics that you wanted to bring up. Tell the folks some SharePoint 2013 stuff.
So I think the best one was one of the questions we had in class today. With SharePoint 2013, we have Excel services, right? And we can do things, all the BI scenario. We can do the pivot charts and the interacting with the workbooks and data connections and that type of thing. And then we have the Excel Office web apps, which can display Excel in the browser, let you edit, update, create, build workbooks in a very similar fashion to as if you had Excel Fat Client on your machine. What happens, though, is it becomes a conflict if you have both and you're trying to understand.
SharePoint doesn't know where to send the Excel stuff.
Yeah, SharePoint gets a little confused. So what you're going to find out is if you have Excel Office web apps, you've been using those, you're happy with that experience, but then you're like, you know what, we're ready to make the jump to more BI-friendly Excel services, you're actually going to have to go in and run some PowerShell that will disable the Excel Office web apps, or Excel Office web app for XLSX files, so that Excel services can take those files over and render those in the browser for your BI scenarios. So if you want to do things like Power Pivots or data connections or that type of thing where Excel services bits are needed, you got to turn off Office web apps for the Excel web app.
So then can you not edit an XLSX file then?
Using Office web apps, no. You can interact with it the same way that you would have in a traditional Excel services, but you can't pop it open in the browser and do all your editing like you wanted. I bet it also, I haven't tried it yet, but I bet it breaks your search previews for Excels as well. Because you would go into the setup and you would essentially say XLSX files. Don't send those to the Wacom thing.
I know where the setting is.
Yeah, wish I had brought the PowerShell. It'd probably been helpful. But
yeah.
Just know it's a challenge you guys need to overcome if you're using both.
Interesting. That's going to be a problem, I think.
Yeah,
because Word and Excel files are the classic example of the Office web apps really shining, that you can bring these things up and you can edit, you can create and all that. But if you start introducing the BI stuff, then you can't do that anymore.
I guess what you're going to find is most people are not going to do the Excel services stuff too much. Excel services is hard. Let's just be honest. To do simple Excel services is pretty easy, but to actually get in there and do Power Pivot scenarios and really starting to drive home the value of Excel services, it's a pretty advanced move. So a lot of people just aren't there, whereas Excel web apps just work. We can edit, view, which is what most people want.
Yeah, I think in most cases. And there was another thing that brought up in class that we were going to talk about. I don't know what it was. There was that one and one other.
The Access stuff?
Yeah, tell them about Access.
So we came up today as well. We talked about the Access services. With SharePoint 2013, keep in mind you have Access Services and you have Access Services 2010. Access Services 2010 being the same thing that we had in SharePoint 2010.
Called Access Services.
Yes.
For maximum confusion.
Well, you got to keep it real, right? Also, as I've done some more homework on that, I realized that most people that had Access Services running in their 2010 farm, it actually wasn't working.
Excellent.
Because you have to integrate reporting services with it to get Access Services 2010 to work.
Oh.
Yeah, I never knew that.
No.
I set up Access Services before, didn't know it.
Yeah.
Guess they weren't using it. But Access Services, so the new 2013 version, with that you're going to see things like you have to use SQL 2012.
Okay.
That SQL Server or that SQL 2012 instance has to have name pipes enabled. That SQL Server instance has to enable SQL authentication, and it has to enable constrained databases. Those are three. The NetBIOS name pipe stuff, not a huge deal.
Not great, but not huge.
Yeah, but the SQL authentication and changing to constrained databases, which you've never even heard of until this moment,
Right.
not something that should be taken lightly.
And what's the worst part about that?
The worst part is every Access Services app that you want to create is going to create its own SQL database. So if you have 1,000 apps, you have 1,000 databases.
That sounds like a nightmare.
So you absolutely need to, if you're going to do Access Services, you need to do that on a dedicated instance of SQL Server. It's irresponsible to do anything other than that.
I agree.
The good news is, I guess also it's worth mentioning, you have to have the app management service set up.
Yep.
And to do the app management service, you have to do a subscription settings service, and then all the DNS stuff.
All the craziness, yeah. And I've got a blog post on that gets all that set up.
But yeah, so keep that in mind. Those are two gotchas that we're seeing. The early signs that you guys are going to run into at some point. So hopefully it'll save you some hours when you get to that point.
Yeah, that was kind of a mess the first time. I couldn't believe. And if you read, Microsoft has a document on how to install Access Services in SharePoint 2013, and it reads like a horror story. I mean, it's like 20 pages. And it's like, I got to do what? Oh my god! And then you do it, and you're like, and then I got to do what? It's pretty bad.
Well, there's this great SharePoint 2013 book that will walk you through it in a lot less than 20 pages. If someone ever finishes his chapter.
I am not the only one that doesn't have a chapter done. I think we should blame this all on Steve.
Fair enough.
Steve's not here to defend himself. Now,
just because Todd would never give you guys the full story, when it comes to the book, I turned in my last chapter on December 21st, 2012. I'm already I'm reviewing final print PDFs ready to go to print. Todd, where you at?
I got one chapter left. I got the outline done. I got a really good idea of what I'm going to do in that chapter. Should be able to pound it out in a week.
3-4 weeks.
Yeah. I had some writer's block in there. Had a terrible case of don't give a damn, a flare up. That flared up a couple of weeks ago. Table of content. You aren't too far off, Doug. Actually, the last chapter I turned in is the introduction chapter.
Yeah, you guys said I got the easy chapters. I did not get an introduction chapter.
I got nothing. I got no excuse. I got so if the editors for the book, if they're listening to this or watching the downloads, I apologize. Jack, funny you mentioned that. There might be some ghostwriters involved.
Jack is volunteer to ghostwrite?
Jack, you want to write a chapter? Hook me up. You got my deets. But yeah, hopefully that'll be coming out soon. I'm working on that.
Yeah, but Steve's way more behind than you. So
oh yeah, I cannot wait for the feeling of superiority I'll have as soon as I email my last chapter in. The very next email is going to be to Steve. What the hell, Steve? I'm tired of waiting on you. Let's get this thing done. Yeah. So before we get out, I did want to introduce Mike. Mike, you're not afraid of the camera, are you? Come on up here. So everybody, this is Mike Glisson. He is a new racker. Started today. Today was his first day.
Very excited.
He and Shane know each other from a previous life, so he's in the Cincinnati office. But tell the fine folks what you do.
I'm a developer, business analyst, working with SharePoint exclusively for about 5 years. Took a couple-year hiatus, and now I'm ready to come back and back into the SharePoint groove.
Give us the 1 minute on that user-centric design stuff that really wowed us. What? That's the stuff we're most excited about. You bring to the SharePoint table.
So I part of my time while I was away from the SharePoint world was leading a team of user experience planners, user experience designers in the advertising world, and I'm looking forward to bringing that experience to help build some better user experience inside of our SharePoint world. So.
Nice.
I think that's going to be rough because SharePoint, in a lot of cases, is very hostile to its users. So I think it's going to fight you as you try to make things. But the industry, and one of the things that has changed, 5 years ago we called it the UI, the user interface, but now it's more the UX, the user experience, because it's more than just how things look. It's about. So I think you're at the right place for all this.
Good times.
Very cool.
So, yep, do you have a blog or a Twitter account or any of that crap?
You can find me on Twitter at Nossilg, Nossilg.
All right, I'll put that in the show notes. But yeah, so there are tens of people watching you right now, Mike.
Right on.
Yeah. So you are a superstar now. You're famous on the internet.
Thank you.
Yep. And so Mike is here. Rackspace has this thing where as soon as you start, they have the rookie orientation. So Mike's doing that this week. Shane and I did it a year ago this week. A year ago, you and I were in Rookie-O. Just wet behind the ears still. And my table 6 got robbed. Absolutely. There's no... Go back, look at the tapes. It's all...
I don't know. I think it all came down to the video.
And our video was good.
It was, but you were beat out. Theirs was better.
Well, that isn't the table that beat us, though. The table that had the much better video than us did not beat us. It was the other table.
Oh, I thought then you got screwed.
Yeah, we got screwed. So that's most of the topics for this week. A little bit of promotion. Again, we've got the SharePoint 2013 book coming out. If Steve would ever get his chapters done, we could get that out to you folks. Put it in the chat room, the Amazon link for that. You can pre-order it there. But also, I'm going to be selling signed copies on my website. So once I get all that figured out, I'll have signed copies on the website. You'll be able to buy them there. I'll be able to write terrible things about Shane, pictures of Shane with an anvil dropping on his head, that kind of stuff.
You'll have to label all the pieces. He doesn't draw very well.
I'm an excellent artist, no matter what this man says. He is a pathological liar.
Hit me on Twitter tomorrow. I'll send you guys some pictures.
So again, and I don't know if you and I are going to be together. I don't know when the book's going to come out, but we could probably get some both signed and all that. So Lori's asking if we want both people to sign it. We're all down for it. The problem is that those books weigh 3 pounds a piece, and they're expensive to ship back and forth. So it's not like I can ship Shane a box that I've signed and then he can ship them out. That adds up pretty quick. So we'll see. And I didn't bring any to the class because it's 3 pounds in the suitcase. It adds up. But they'll be at every conference that him and I are at for the next however many years.
Yeah. And Doug, I'll be happy to sign yours.
Yes, Susan. Shane is next to me right now, but there are no books. So that's the weak link in your plan. So we'll figure all that out. But speaking of conferences, in a month from today, we're going to be in San Francisco at SP TechCon.
Yes.
We're doing Admin 1 and 2 and an install session. And we'll be doing stuff at the Rackspace booth. I don't know what all's planned for that. But we'll be there. Going to try to do the Netcast. Haven't figured out when or where. It's probably going to be another creepy thing like this where it's going to be you and I and some strange guy in my hotel room.
There's a lot of people like Mike in San Francisco.
That's true.
That's right there.
Yeah, we're the strange ones in San Francisco.
Remember the pop-up dinner?
I do. Weird stuff. But so keep your eye out on that. We'll figure something out. Again, one of the things I've been working on the last year or so is consistency, fighting through all this and doing it when I'm on the road. And I'm doing this all through wireless hotel internet tonight, and it's worked out pretty well.
I hope their experiences has been as good. It's been good here.
It's been pretty good. Susan wants to fly out to SP TechCon. I give you permission, Susan. Fly out to SP TechCon. So there you go. Yeah, and when you sign up for registration, if you use my last name, Clint, I think you get like $1 off or something. So by all means, do that. And so and I saw it in the chat room earlier. I've gotten the question like 4 times in the last month. If I can go to one conference this year, what should I go to? The problem is that there is one defining conference for SharePoint every year. And what is that?
SharePoint conference?
Yes, the Microsoft SharePoint conference. The problem is they haven't announced that there's going to be one this year. And if there is one, it's going to be at the tail end of the year. So for folks who can only go to one, they should try to go to that one, but they can't plan for that right now. So SP TechCon's in a month, and then there's going to be another one, however, whenever. So I really don't have a good answer for those people when they ask me that question. Doug in the chat room is asking if the Boston SP TechCon has been scheduled yet. I have not seen the dates for that. But customarily, there's one in the spring in San Francisco and then one later in the year in Boston.
Summer, June, July, somewhere in there?
Yeah, so they usually talk about that we'll know in a month.
Yeah.
I guess. But the SP TechCons are great conferences. They're smaller, 1,000 people or so, but they're very cozy. And if you want to, talk to the instructors and learn a lot of stuff and be friendly, it's a great conference for that. Yeah. So, Susan, if you ended up at SP TechCon, San Francisco or Boston, I think you'd be happy.
Yeah.
I think you'd. So, I think that is everything. Do you have anything else you wanted to say to the fine folks out in the internet?
Hi, Mom.
My mom as well. My mom came up in our class today.
Yeah?
She's famous. She has no idea.
Me and your mom, we have a relationship now.
That's,
I don't know what to tell you.
Friends on Facebook and all that. So again, if you've got any feedback on the production stuff that's changed in the last month, give me a shout. At Todd Clint on Twitter, todd.clint@rackspace.com. And about any of this kind of stuff, give me feedback. I've been making a lot of tweaks and changes based on your guys' feedback, so keep that going. In a month, I'll be at SP TechCon. And again, if you're getting this from iTunes or whatever, we've got a YouTube channel now. You can go to youtube.com/ToddClintNetcast. They all go up there. You can subscribe to the channel and get the videos from there and leave comments and all that kind of stuff. And then also on toddclint.com/netcast, there's an RSS feed to download the video for Windows, the video for the iPad, all that. So all the different ways that you want to consume this are out there. If you got any suggestions for other places I could put it, let me know. So we'll make it easy for you. We'll do what we can.
Very cool.
So thanks to everybody. Have a good night, and I'll see you next week. Regular time, regular channel. I'll be in my basement. It'll be a good time.
I won't be there. I might be in the bushes outside the window, but
So see everybody. Have a good week, and I'll see you next week.
Thanks for having me.
Bye.